Hey guys, if you're shopping for knives and gear, make sure you check out the description of the video you're watching right now for links to some great online retailers. There's also individual links for knives that I personally recommend. Thanks! What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I'm going to be giving you a quick, heavy quotes, quick overview of my brand new Demko MG AD-20 in full titanium. A lot of you guys know, I mentioned this when I reviewed it. The moment that I was aware that there was a full titanium variant with diamond textured titanium, I thought, I will own that knife. At the time, I had no idea exactly how difficult it would be to get my hands on one, but despite the trouble I went through during trying to figure out how to get one, I actually ended up speaking with the Demkos about availability, and I know a lot of people want to get their hands on this. If you didn't know, this knife is very, very popular right now, and for good reason. We're going to talk about it. But if you're watching this because you're like, I just want to get my hands on one, right? I spoke with them, and they said that their plan is to make them much more available. There are more coming soon. I don't know exactly when, but there are a lot coming that are going to hit retailers. One of the retailers that I confirmed is actually DLT Trading, and I've got links for DLT Trading right down below. So if you're waiting on one of these, check out my link. Get your name in for the notifications, right? Because as I understand it, there are more coming, and they have decided to make some different blade shapes. And I already know they use 20CV and 3V, so probably at least those two steels. But it sounds like there are more coming. When? I have absolutely no idea. But they're going to be popular for a while. They're going to go fast for a while. So if you're trying to get one, use that link right down in the description. I'll make sure it's right at the top. Thanks so much to my generous patrons for supporting me right now. If you are enjoying the daily content on this channel and you would also like to support me, you can find my link for Patreon right down in the description. Get your hands on some cool stickers and some other benefits. Your support would mean the world to me. And please follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. Not going to be a full review because I've already reviewed the AD-20. This is the MG AD-20, meaning machine ground. If you find them online, past listings for like over $800. Those are the custom ones. It's the same thing as far as I understand it with a hand ground blade. It takes a lot longer, so those are going to be more expensive. The machine ground versions of these are much less expensive. The standard version of this knife in G10 and either 20CV or 3V, which is what I guess is what's going on right now, are $425, about the same price as a Hinderer. These are US made items, by the way. And then the full tie variants that you're seeing right here will run $625 retail. The secondary market is another thing. I would, honestly guys, I would wait. Don't fork over too much money on the secondary market. Just wait. Apparently their plan is to make them much more available. But anyways, I'm gonna be doing just a simple overview. I'm gonna do a couple of measurements here, a couple of little things just for people who don't know. The overall length of this guy is coming in at just a hair over. It's about 8.6 inches overall. Blade length is coming in at 3.75. Cutting edge is coming in at just a hair under 3.5, about 3.4 because of that sharpening choil there. I'll go ahead and do some size comparisons here real quick up against the Ontario Rat 1. Rat 1 is coming in at 8.6 inches overall. Let's do another one, that a knife that really compares well in terms of price and how it's made, where it's made. The Hinderer XM18 3.5 inch. This one actually also in full titanium. The XM18 3.5 inch coming in at 8.25 inches overall. And you know what? I'm going to go ahead and compare it with an XM24 because this knife is very much like, it's kind of like in between the XM18 and the XM24 in terms of size and thickness, at least the standard thickness of an XM18 3.5 inch. So here's an XM24, right? Now we're kind of at an angle, so the XM24 is looking like a monster right now, but there you go. It's kind of an in-between size, right? This is actually the same thickness as an XM24, 187, 190 thousandths, right? Standard XM18 3.5 inch comes in at 165 thousandths. I understand there are fatty versions of these that are also 185, 190 thousandths, and there's also a skinny variant. But as far as the standard version of the XM24 and the standard version of the XM18. That's what you're looking at there. How about up against the Spyderco PM2? Spyderco PM2 is coming in at 8.3 inches overall. And we'll do one more. Well, no, let's do two more. Up against the Benchmade Griptilian, or in this case, the Ritter Hogue. Ritter Hogue coming in at 8 inches overall. And we'll do the Spyderco Para 3. Spyderco Para 3 coming in at 7.25 inches overall. The blade stock thickness on this guy, we're going to talk about some of the other things. I know this is unorthodox for my channel, but we're going to talk about some other things here in a sec. Blade stock thickness on this guy. Where are my calipers? There they are. This is, like I was saying, should be about 185 thousandths. We'll check it a couple of times. It's showing 180 thousandths there. Let's do it again. Sorry, I'm going to make sure it's zeroed out. Okay, so about maybe 180 thousandths, something like that. So maybe slightly, not quite as thick as the XM24. That's fine. The standard version of this knife, the G10 version, weighs a little over 6 ounces, right? The standard version of this knife, I think, weighs pretty close to what a full... This is a full titanium, solid titanium. Maybe we should turn the scale on first. That's probably the right way to do that. The standard version of this knife weighs close to what this guy does. I think it's maybe a little over 6 ounces, the standard version. That's a full tie XM18. The full titanium version of this weighs almost 7.25 ounces. So this is heavy, right? That's fine with me. I like a heavy knife. It is actually over my preferred weight range for carry. Preferred weight range for me is between 4 and 6.5 ounces, but you know what? I'd make an exception for this. The reason I'm showing this so quickly after I unboxed it, right, that's unorthodox versus what I usually do. It usually takes a couple of weeks, is because I've already reviewed this, and this is basically a full titanium version of the one that I reviewed, right? So I've already got a feel for it. I know some people want to know, you know, is it running on bearings? Is it running on washers? It's running on bearings. I know some people want washers, whatever. That's a preference thing. I don't mind that it's running on bearings. And are the bearings contacting directly? Are they contacting the titanium scales? No, there are steel washers inside. I confirmed this with Demko knives. So it's actually steel on both sides of the bearings, either the blade face or the steel washers. So it's not running on titanium directly, and that's cool. On the G10 version, it has a steel liner to run on. I don't know if there's an additional steel washer in there or not. I have no idea, but I think it's just running on the steel liners. But anyways, let's go ahead and talk about action. How is the action on this? Guys, let me say this real quick. You know, if you've been watching my channel for a while, you'll know kind of about the whole Excalibur thing and what I, you know, look for in an ideal folding knife. And that doesn't mean that I'm suggesting that these types of knives are ideal for everybody. I'm just saying in terms of my own preferences after handling hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of knives, I have a preference for titanium, a monochromatic look, right? Easy deployment. Anyways, if you want to know what all the criteria are for Excalibur, the term that I use to describe this ideal folding knife for myself, there's actually an entire series on a playlist called The Quest for the Perfect Folding Knife that you can go watch and get clarification on all that. This knife is essentially what happens when you combine a Spyderco Shaman, or at least the best example that I have, a Spyderco Shaman with a Hinder XM18. You get all that robust chunkiness of the XM18, right? That feeling of hard use. And then you get this, you know, this sort of the access point in terms of opening it, right? That comfort in terms of, you know, where you're holding on to it and how you can choke up. It's that. And then it has its own elements, right? The most important being this shark lock. Something that I appreciate about the Spyderco Shaman is it's not an exposed frame lock like the Hinder XM18, which means no matter how hard I squeeze it while I'm using it, it's not going to affect the geometry of the lock. There's nothing wrong with exposed frame locks. In fact, they lock up harder the harder you squeeze them. But I don't like to mess with the lock face geometry or mess with the I don't want to waste the life away. Not that that would happen. It's just something that's in the back of my mind. This sort of combines all of that together with me. Makes it easy to deploy. In fact, there are multiple means of deployment. You can actually deploy it with the thumb stud. You can do the reverse flick using the little thumb hole thing there, which isn't on all of them. I think some of them don't have it. You can just sort of wheel it out. And then you can also use the shark lock to sort of whip it out. That is amazing. This adds, anybody who's watched Nick Shabazz take this thing apart, you'll know exactly how strong this thing is. A lot of people are referring to the Shark Lock as essentially a one-handed, fidgety version of the Triad Lock. I don't know if it's exactly as strong as the Triad Lock, but just by looking at it in that disassembly video, I can say, yeah, this thing locks up ridiculously solid. Even if it's only 75% the strength of the Triad Lock, let's say hypothetically, it's still massively overkill. I'm happy that I can manipulate this like this. It is so fun to use this. And it sounds so cool. I'm sorry, I'm working with the positioning here. Listen to this. Oh my gosh, that is so cool. It's so smooth on the release too. Oh man, I love that. That sounds so awesome, the sliding factor. And it's not exposed like a frame lock. No matter how you're holding this, when it's locked out, there is virtually no chance you're going to accidentally disengage that. That is something that I cannot tell you how much I appreciate about this. On top of that, aesthetically, I appreciate that. You guys know my taste for aesthetics comes largely from the Hinder XM18. This is, it's obviously doing its own thing. In fact, the ergonomic lines and the overall profile are completely and totally unique. But it reminds me a lot of the Hinder XM18 in terms of just its very aggressive, robust, workhorse nature. That's what it looks like. And it is exactly that. This is very expensive, right? And I know a lot of people are like, that's really cool, and I'm sure it really is hard. If you don't know, yeah, this is a $625 knife. It's very expensive, but for anybody thinking it's obviously not meant to be used, oh yeah, no, you're wrong. It is absolutely 100% meant to be used. This thing is a, quote unquote, apocalypse level folding knife. I know there's going to be people jumping in real quick. Well, if you really need to use a knife that hard, you really should be using a fixed blade. We know. We know, but as far as folding knives go, with durable locks, right? I mean, if you're really going to put a folding knife to the test, this has got to be one of the most durable, convenient folding knives out there. It is made to be used. Would it be nice if there was a cold steel version of this that costs less money? Absolutely. Absolutely. Are we going to see that? I have no idea. I didn't ask them because I know that they've been asked that about 1 billion times. If you're thinking about jumping on Instagram to ask them about that, I would say they're probably asked that about 100 times a day. I'm not going to speak for them, but truthfully, I just don't know, right? It would be really cool. That would be awesome. That way more people can enjoy this. I would imagine it would be, just as usable and just as durable, right? That's been the case with the AD-20. People like me, I appreciate the cold steel variants of things, but I like to go out, it's kind of like the ZT-0562 and the Rick Hinder XM18 thing, right? I appreciate the 0562 for what it is. I just want the real thing. I just do, I like that. I like, Rick Hinder, and I really enjoy. I don't mean to make this a Hinder video. I really, from the conversations that I've had with the Demkos, I think they're great people. And just judging the build quality of this, this is excellent. In fact, this is probably, aside from my XMs, this is the most satisfied that I've been spending this much money on a knife. I've spent a lot more. The most expensive knife I've ever owned was a $1,300 knife, right? And I've spent a lot less on knives, but I find that my comfort zone seems to be right around here. And I've had a lot of good knives in that price range, but this is something extra special. I mean, it's the same idea here, as the G10 one. It's just in titanium, as I've said 20 times already. But the fit and finish all the way around is just beautiful. I love their pivot. That is so cool. Obviously, these are custom pivots, right? That's so cool how it looks like a cap from a bullet, right? It's just awesome. It says Demko knives. Got the adjustment head over here. You have these massive, I believe they're T8. Yeah, these are T8. I'm just going to go ahead and say it. I know those are T8. I don't care that there's a lot of hardware. Honestly, the construction of this thing, if you haven't watched Nick's disassembly video, you got to make sure everything's in place, but it doesn't have a lot of little teeny tiny parts flying all over the place. There's a lot of them, but the way that they fit together is, it's very obvious. It's just step by step. It doesn't have a whole lot of overly complicated systems, right? There's a coil spring back here, which is what allows this switch to kind of go backwards, right? Which is great. I would not question the durability of that at all. It's nowhere near the same thing as an Omega spring, and there's basically no chance that that thing is gonna. It's completely caged inside of this thing, right? Looking back in here, you can get my flashlight down in the description if you want. Looking back in there, you can't see the spring. It's completely caged inside of that thing, right? So if something were to go wrong, it's a simple coil spring, and I would imagine that they would take care of you. But that alleviates, like if this was running on some type of Omega spring, it really would have just salted my onions. But that's not the case here. Absolutely not the case. I know that a lot of people are saying, well, you don't need that many means of deployment. I don't really care, you know, that I don't need that many. The thumb stud is partially in the cutting path, but it just really doesn't bother me. And you know what? It looks like you can actually remove it if you want to. You could totally do that on this knife and just use the you know, the thumb slot. And if you didn't want either of those things, you can get these blades without this slot here. You could take the thumb stud off and just use the shark lock, sort of whip it in and out. You know, so that's fine. You know, people want to complain about that. I get it. But you don't have to deal with it if you don't want to. On top of that, ergonomically, this thing is just an absolute dream. Somebody asked me on the question and answer thing, what's the folding knife that feels most like a fixed blade, right? And do you look for that in knives? Not really, but if I was to say any folding knife feels the most like a fixed blade, it's this. You are locked in. You can choke up. The jimping is in the right place, right? This is a thick blade, robust out at the tip. It is definitely thick behind the edge, but not so thick that it's unable to, you know, perform simple tasks. It's not going to be the right thing for shaving grapes, right? For those of you who are professional grape shavers and you're shaving, you know, 40, 50 grapes a day, right? This probably isn't going to be your tool of choice. But yeah, it'll definitely do your regular cutting test. For your hard use stuff, yeah, there's very few folding knives that I would choose. I don't know if there's any folding knife that I would choose over this. Yeah, even the stuff with the triad lock. I mean, this is just so convenient in and out of the pocket. It's so much easier to manipulate than the cold steel triad lock. And guys, I like the cold steel triad lock. Andrew Demko invented the cold steel triad lock, right? I like those, but I like this a lot better. And I think I'm just guessing, I don't know this, I'm thinking part of the reason that he did this is because he recognized, you know, the current trend in a call for fidget factor. So in his mind, I'm going to guess it was, how do I combine the strength of the triad lock with the modern need of, or the modern knife world need of fidget factor, right? Make it cool, make it fun, make it clicky, right? Add a beat to that. Yeah, here you go, the shark lock, and they nailed it. I wouldn't change anything. I wouldn't change anything about the shark lock. The positioning of this is excellent. Oh my gosh, the tumbling on the blade looks beautiful. Moving on to other things about the knife. Beautiful. These edges in here nicely knocked down. This is knocked down. The edge is perfect. Symmetrical on both sides. No wonkiness, anything like that. Beautiful clip point blade. Like I said, I think there's going to be more blade shapes available soon. The diamond texturing on the scales is absolutely beautiful. It is a little bit different than what Rick Hinderer does, and I appreciate that. This is kind of sunk in diamonds, and these are protruding diamonds. But to the touch, this guy's a little more aggressive, but it's still nice and smooth. It's definitely going to add traction, necessary traction. I love the choke up point on this guy. I feel doesn't feel at all like I'm running the risk of running my finger up on the blade, even though there's no really any guard. You can kind of choke back on this area right here. There is a sharpening choil, which is excellent. I love that. Positioning of the screws is great. There is a lanyard hole. We'll talk about that here in a sec. There's 3 standoffs. I don't know that we really needed 3, but I really don't care. I'll take excess hardware and excess parts if all of the heads are T8, and that's what we've got going on here. I think the pocket clip is positioned well. This knife really doesn't carry shallow or deep. It's kind of right in between, and that's fine. Technically, the lanyard hole is prioritized above the clip. I'd rather it wasn't there, but it's there, and like I said, the carry position is pretty darn good. There's literally only one thing about this knife that bothers me. Pocket clip's in a good shape. Carries well, the position of carry. It's the bill. The bill comes out and then goes straight. If they shaved off this part here and just rounded it, basically it would be exactly the same thing as this. Had they done that, it basically would have been perfect, right? And, you know, a lot of people are going to be quick to point out saying, you always say that you want contouring. Sure, it would have been nice to have contouring on these scales. Would have been great. Does it need it? No. Does it need it as far as the way I describe Excalibur? I mean, yeah, technically. Like, I do always prefer, you know, the contouring. Like, I mean, the Shaman is not quite contoured. It's just really heavy chamfering. It's actually flat up here, right? But it's closer than this guy. But they did such a good job rounding these areas down. Oh my gosh, so good. This is a dream to hold. It's like holding titanium butter. It's just wonderful. It sounds gross, but it's really good. Pocket clip's not a hot spot because it's really not raised that much. You're going to fight that clip just a little bit going in and out of your pants. The titanium is not rough enough to fray up your pants, or at least if it is, it would take a long time, you know. If you plan on taking this knife in and out of your pants 3 times a day for 200 years, yeah, it'll probably destroy your jeans, right? For everybody else, you're going to be okay. Adjustment heads back here. To my knowledge, that is actually a T10. I'm going to check that here real quick because I can't remember from my last review. Here's a T10. Let's find out. Yeah. Yep, T10. So there you go. Everything is completely and totally solid. I spit on it. Sorry, let me wipe that off. Everything is completely and totally solid. There is zero blade play. It is so solid. God. Shouldering back here on this massively oversized stop pin, right? Listen to that sound. Oh. No detent lash, right? Even though it has more of an axis style, right? It kind of feels like how when you pull on a Benchmade knife, but it doesn't go click. Right there, it doesn't do that. It's either closed or it's starting to open. They've rounded that area back there so perfectly, and the rounded area of the shark lock is also perfectly set up to match that. Wonderful. How's the centering? Absolutely perfect. Absolutely. Oh, beautiful. Can I do the reverse flick with the thumb stud? Yes, you can. Can you do it like this? Yes, you can. You probably can Spidey drop it. Ready? Yeah. God. This is so good. I have not been this excited about a knife in so long. And I know that some people are just going to say you're crazy, or there's going to be skeptics. It can't be that. It could possibly be worth that much money. Knives get expensive, guys. For those of you who don't know, knives get very, very expensive. This is not the first knife to clear $600, not by a long shot. In fact, if you didn't know, there are knives that cost well over $10,000 in this world, right? This knife costs a lot of money because it's made in the United States. There are elements of this knife that create more work for the designer and the manufacturer than a knife that is all 100% machine made with less processes, like your WE knives, your ZT knives, right? Knives like that, Spyderco knives, Benchmade knives. Well, they all cut, right? It's just a knife. It's just supposed to cut. Yeah, but there's enough of a market. There's enough of an enthusiast market to create such insane demand for knives like these that people like the Demkos right now literally cannot keep up. So I can understand everybody's individual value systems. I can even understand people who just disagree with this completely, right? The fact of the matter is that this knife costs more money to make, a lot more money to make, right, with these materials and the way that they do it in the United States versus companies who charge less for their knives, like Spyderco, Benchmade, ZT, WE, right, etc. It just costs more money. If it's not for you, then it's not for you, but it's for so many people that the demand is vastly outweighing the supply right now. It's crazy, right? And so they're going to make more, and people are going to buy them. Some people are going to use them, and some people won't, right? It just depends on who you are and what your reasoning is for being in this hobby. I like both ends of it. Some knives I use, some knives I don't. One thing is for sure, this knife ain't going anywhere anytime soon. You will likely continue to see this knife for the next year, at least on the channel, and I honestly wouldn't be surprised if I just never got rid of it, unless they did a version of it, right? Unless, let's say they started making these widely available. You could get your hands on a full tie version of this, and they did some different blade shapes and maybe some different steel, right? By the way, this is CPM 20 CV. Then maybe there's going to be one that calls to me. Honestly, this is the first knife in a long time that I would actually considering owning multiple of. I own multiple Hinderers. The XM18 you're seeing here, the 24, and I got another one over there. I've never done that with another knife. But I can definitely see myself doing that with, as an enthusiast, somebody who is a collector, enthusiast, and knife user, and appreciates all of the different elements that go into a knife and the design philosophy, right? I can see myself doing that with the AD-20. there is no other knife for years, you know, have I really wanted to own multiple of, just because I love the design that much, right? Even the Shaman, I've only ever really wanted to own one. For whatever reason, this knife I want more than one of. This is so good. I know you guys want to know, is it Excalibur? Is it the XM18? Is it the Shaman, right? After you texture the Shaman, how is it going to compare? I don't know. These three knives right here, right, and truthfully, the non-flipper version of the XM18 I think is a little better, but, you know, the itch calls, and I had to pick up one of these in S45VN. This guy's right at home in this Excalibur lineup. It is absolutely an Excalibur candidate. How's it going to compare to the Shaman after it's textured? I don't know. As of right now, I love Hinder, and I always will love Hinder, and I will keep buying Hinder knives, and perhaps in the future Hinder will come out with something that I appreciate more. As of right now, though, truthfully, you know, and this has not changed for so long, years and years. My favorite knife in existence, officially, despite what I look for when I try to define Excalibur, despite what I was trying to create with this guy, my favorite knife in existence right now is the full titanium Demko MG AD-20. Hands down. This is I cannot explain to you guys exactly how happy this thing makes me. I feel like if I wanted to, I could take this out and use it for anything, right? But it's also satisfying to just sit around and enjoy, right? Sorry, the angle here. It's very satisfying. The weight feels good. By the way, the balance on this guy with a slotted blade, the balance even on the full titanium one is about right here. That's right in the middle of that choil where you're supposed to put your index finger, which is why I think I said when I unboxed it, it really doesn't feel as heavy as it is, right? Your blades with the slot filled in, they're going to be a little more blade heavy, right? And then your G10 ones, I imagine, will be more blade heavy, right? Yeah, it's literally right in line. The balance point is right in line with that stop pin, right? Which is great because that's where you're putting your index finger when you're using it. What an excellent thing. This is one of the most important knives of 2020. I think it's one of the most excellent knives, the most interesting designs that's ever been created. I haven't been a part of this world forever, but I've certainly been a part of it for the last decade. Some things have interested me more or less, right? And I definitely have not handled everything, despite the amount of content I've put out. There's way more out there than what I've handled, right? I'm still only just the tip of the iceberg. But I love this. This is my favorite knife in existence, and I am more than happy to shout that, you know, from the top of a mountain, spread it far and wide. This is excellent. If you decide to go for it, you're going to be happy with it. That's the Metal Complex guarantee. Actually, it's not a legal guarantee of any type. I just to make that clear. Your satisfaction, whether or not you're satisfied with something, is entirely up to you. That is just me trying to be funny. But and officially, yeah, I think I have to say it. I don't work with the Demkos, so yeah, it's just me trying to be funny. But seriously, my opinion is that if you do decide to spend $425 on the G10 one or $625 on the full titanium one, if and when you can get your hands on one, it is my opinion that you will likely be very, very satisfied with this. This is so good. Expect to see more of this knife here and on Instagram. I absolutely love this thing. Guys, that's going to be pretty much it for today's video. We are at 28 minutes. I've gone on long enough. Like I said, if you're anticipating one of these, if you're going to get one, right, you want to get your hands on one, use that DLT trading link down in the description. Sign up for email notifications so that you know when they're going to drop. The next batch or so, I would imagine, will go very quickly, but like I said, more should become available soon. Best thing that you can do is just try to be ready for when they drop. I think that's going to be pretty much it today, guys. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.